Hello and welcome to another episode of Blue Alpine TV. In today's episode, I would like to go through what happened in the markets. We'll quickly look at what the regulators are saying from the different countries, what is needed to get Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, all these cryptocurrencies into our daily life. And then at the end, we'll quickly look at a cryptocurrency project called Icon. And we'll quickly look at how we are doing research at Blue Alpine or parts of the research. So first of all, if we look at Bitcoin, we can see the drop has been quite dramatic. So this has been an all-time low from the last couple of months, easy. It has recovered a bit throughout the day. So we've hit back around 12,000 and then back again, but it just doesn't want to come up again. Same with the general market. So as you can see, everything is pretty much red. Here we're looking at 10, 20, 30% drops in certain projects. And a lot of people are asking and are obviously nervous because of what is happening in the markets and what exactly is causing this issue and these markets to drop so strongly. We at Blue Alpine, or I at Blue Alpine Research, generally believe in blockchain technology, so I don't think that this short-term volatility is actually making any difference in terms of how we do investing here. I think it's quite important that when you do investing, that you invest into the fundamentals of a project and not actually just into the chart. That way, when stuff like this happens, you are actually prepared and are confident in your investment decision. But coming back to the general market sentiment, what is going on is basically different countries are either discussing or planning to regulate Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies in general. And one of the strongest markets obviously here is China. So China wants, it's not really clear what China exactly wants, but there are rumors that China might ban cryptocurrency trading in general, or whether they will ban mining in general in the entirety of China. It is very unclear on what exactly will happen. So a few days ago, we've had the same issue with South Korea. So there was a rumor floating around that the South Korean government has actually decided to ban Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and general cryptocurrency trading. So a lot of exchanges have gotten raided, which turned out to be actual false. So a lot of exchanges have regular visits, let's call them, from the government to make sure that the exchanges are complying with the money laundering laws. And that's basically what happened in South Korea. So the markets quickly gained some steam, and then again it happened because of the news coming out of China. Now, I have a bit of a different opinion here. So what could be one of the reasons of China actually looking into banning the mining operations could also be the energy output and the energy expense of mining. As you all know, in order to mine Bitcoin, you have to use something called the proof of work technology. And that basically means that a lot of energy has to be spent in order to mine Bitcoin. Some statistics, I think, are showing that the entire Bitcoin mining operation, or generally of the entire network, will actually cost more energy than Argentina spends. I don't know whether it was per year or per day. But this is obviously, this can become a problem. And if we increase generally the Bitcoin mining operations all over the world, this will become an issue also in an ecological level. Now, I think this could be one of the reasons why China is actually looking into either banning or regulating or actually controlling this entire thing. Then the other thing is obviously China has strong growth plans, has interest in growing and keep on growing. So they want to keep a certain amount of control within the country and within its own borders. So it's a bit difficult to support something that you can't really control. So this could be one of the reasons why I think the Chinese government is thinking about either regulating or even banning. But I don't think banning will be an actual option for the Chinese government. Now then, here we have a quote from Joachim Würmeling. He is part of the board of Germany's Bundesbank, which is the national bank in Germany. And he's saying effective regulation of virtual currencies would therefore only be achievable through the greatest possible international cooperation, because the regulatory power of nation states is obviously limited. So what he's referring to is basically he's calling a lot of different countries to help him out, or basically help Germany out to decide on certain cryptocurrency or virtual currency laws. Basically, because it's digital, because it's virtual, it's actually quite difficult to set and regulate these markets. On the one hand, obviously this is the essence of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, that it is completely decentralized and not regulated at all. But on the other hand, with fraudulent ICOs coming up and all of these other problems, it actually makes sense that the countries are embracing cryptocurrency as is and are helping to regulate it in some way. I don't think regulation and some kind of control over the markets is an entirely bad thing. I think it can definitely help grow the market in a more healthy way, because we've all heard the words from other people saying basically that cryptocurrency is the Wild West of finance currently. And this obviously became kind of a like chain reaction. We have the same thing in France going on. So France wants to basically regulate cryptocurrency trading. So Bruno Le Maire, he announced that his department had created a cryptocurrency task force that will be chaired by a former central banker. We want a stable economy. We reject the risk of speculation and the possible financial diversions linked to Bitcoin. And obviously he's talking a lot about the volatility that is happening in the markets. Le Maire said, according to a rough translation, I've just entrusted Jean-Pierre Landau, former deputy governor of the Banque de France, with a mission on cryptocurrencies. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I hope that Jean-Pierre Landau has a bit of knowledge and comes a bit from the community. This is always a bit of a problem with regulations and companies trying to give an opinion on these topics that are quite in their early stages, alpha, beta stages of what will happen basically with the markets, with those cryptocurrencies. So we in the community of cryptocurrency and digital assets, we believe that the people who make the regulations and put a certain control on the markets should actually know what they're talking about. And this kind of brings me to the next article. So here, one of the biggest banks in the world, Credit Suisse, argues irrational exuberance around ICOs indicates a Bitcoin bubble. Now, the Bitcoin bubble word, we've heard it a bunch of times. Everyone is saying it. Saying it basically means that you will receive page views on an article. So I think, and we have looked at the paper. So we have the paper here. It is done by two analysts from Credit Suisse. And basically they are arguing mainly that stuff like ICOs are a problem for the market, and Bitcoin is not really a currency due to it being limited to 21 million, it not being able to be regulated by a central bank and other topics. And when we look at this, I think we need to look at different aspects or different perspectives on why these two traders, let me grab the name of these two. So we have Dr. Dietmar Pietz and Gregory Mall, who both work in asset management in Credit Suisse. Why would they come out and say something like this? Now you have to think of this perspective and this opinion from the perspective from Credit Suisse. So Credit Suisse is a bank that makes money by you or like retail investors putting their money into their banks and them charging you certain fees for certain transactions. Now, if you would use just Bitcoin, other cryptocurrency projects to do your daily finance handling, be it paying bills, sending money, remittances, stuff like this, this could basically mean that the business of Credit Suisse is in great danger. Now, thinking that a company like this is a couple of billions worth, this is basically a sign of fear, in my opinion, from quite a big bank. that is taking Bitcoin serious. Now, saying that it is a bubble and saying that it's not serious is basically them trying to make fun of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. So I wouldn't give this too much value, to be honest. We have other opinions from other banks. So one analyst is saying it will hit 100,000 in 2018. This is from the Saxo Bank, and he is famous for doing these crazy numbers. So he said that it will rise to 2,000 in 2017, which we've obviously already broken. So I think we have to be a bit careful. Instead of valuing the bank's opinions too much, I think we need to focus in the community on generally making sure that we build real businesses with real use cases. And depending on whether, I mean, in the end, the market decides. So whether or not cryptocurrencies will be a success, the market decides. Not the bank, not the government, not anyone else. If the cryptocurrencies can make a real world use case, this will basically mean that cryptocurrencies will use or not use, but basically replace banks in certain ways. Maybe not in all ways, maybe not immediately, maybe it will be a phasing out of banks, and then banks maybe iterating to something else, but we're not sure. So I think it's important to look at their opinion and understand where they're coming from and what the counter arguments are. Obviously, I think somewhat regulating ICOs makes sense. We've heard a lot of from a lot of ICO scams, and I think for the normal investor that's not really informed, this is a bit problematic. However, if you're reading Blue Alpine research, you're already informed, so no problem there. But obviously, if generally the market wants to invest in ICOs and people just don't know what the ICO is all about, this is a risk of a Ponzi scheme, of scams and fraud that could happen in the market. So I agree with this part of the article. But now to make a bit of a parallel, so they are also in the article saying that it could become, well, it is a bubble and it could continue to rise and actually be the cause of quite a big economic crisis that will come later on, which is really interesting coming from Credit Suisse, because if you remember in 2008, Credit Suisse and other banks were actually quite had a big involvement in the subprime mortgage crisis that caused a worldwide depression, worldwide economy crisis. And even here, like this article is from 2006, it says basically that both Credit Suisse and Deutsche Bank have agreed to pay billions in fines relating to the collapse of the US housing market that contributed to the financial crisis. So this is really interesting. I mean, the Credit Suisse has a lot of blood on their hands when it comes to the economy crisis from 2008, yet they are here talking about the next crisis that doesn't come from them and has no involvement from them whatsoever. So this is another point that I think we have to take into account, that banks obviously will always push away these issues or these problems, these headlines, and more bring Bitcoin and the negativity into the limelight from their perspective. Moving forward, an interesting headline is this here. Mark Cuban, he's the owner of the Dallas Mavericks, which is an NBA basketball team, to accept Bitcoin and Ether next season. So Mark Cuban, he's a billionaire. He's quite known in the technology space and has a lot of followers when it comes to technology trends, so and so. He's also part of the TV show Shark Tank, which a lot of Americans, millions of Americans actually watch regularly. And he has always been kind of hesitant to be pro Bitcoin, pro cryptocurrency in general. But he is saying we will be adding a crypto payment ability for next season. We will accept Bitcoin, Ethereum, possibly some other currencies. That's to be determined. That's really an interesting opinion. And I'm not really talking about this because it's the Dallas Mavericks or Mark Cuban. I'm more thinking and looking at this from a general market sentiment, which is really interesting. So people in general are starting to take cryptocurrencies seriously. And I think this is a really important step for the next part of this evolution or revolution, however you may call it. Cryptocurrencies as the general essence have to become a de facto currency that you can use in daily life. Steps like these, where you can pay for your favorite team to actually watch them by paying in Bitcoin or Ethereum or Litecoin or whatever, this is actually quite important. And I think this will bring a certain positive limelight where you will really realize, oh wow, I can really pay with this money. So this is real money, and this, I can use this to order products and services. And in combination with this, I'm also a huge fan of, but I have no affiliation or relation with Revolut. They are actually an online bank. So what they're doing is they give you a credit card. It's actually a debit card, and you can prepay or load up money and you can spend it in different currencies. This is one part of their project, and the other part is that you can actually buy cryptocurrencies and spend that as well. Now, without trying to give Revolut too much marketing here, what I think is really important is this will bring Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Ethereum, like Revolut is offering, into a limelight that is really interesting, because now you can actually pay with a card that you can use in daily life using cryptocurrency. And while this may have problems and this is already not perfect, and yeah, maybe Mark Cuban is just using it for the marketing plot, I think it definitely has some value to it, and we should strive as a community definitely to get more supporters of cryptocurrencies. That way the general public will actually know and understand that Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, and all of these currencies can be used to buy real products and services. So this is really interesting. I'll actually put a link to my referral link for Revolut in there. So if you're interested and want to give this a try, I think the card is for free. The fees are quite good as well. So I think here, yeah, 1 Bitcoin is the equivalent. So this is real time, and this will change I think this is after their fees as well. So this is a really interesting project. I think this and other projects are popping up that could be really interesting for the community. Moving on, next up, I would like to look at Icon. Icon is a project here that I've seen that has gained some traction in the last couple of days, weeks. So if we look at the 3-month chart here, if it loads up, yeah, so I think this was a really interesting, it was an ICO as far as I know. I've heard about it from a couple of friends, and we want to write a paper on Icon as well to make sure that we really get all the details. And in order for us to write the paper, we actually need to do the research ourselves. So as you know, we are doing part of the research that you don't have to do. We are preparing everything in total to give you one package where you can actually read and understand what this project is all about, because sometimes it's either too technical or it's a bit difficult to understand. So it's our goals to bring this to the end investors, to you, to the readers. So this project is really interesting. We generally start by looking, we start first with the white paper. So the first instance where we look at is always the white paper, to understand what exactly is the foundation, the company, the project, are they trying to achieve, what exactly is it? And depending on that, we dive deeper into certain areas. So when we see here, generally, the majority of blockchain projects place emphasis on their decentralization methodology and lack evidence of adoption in the real world due to their technological and business limitations. The Icon project, so it's a project, aims to overcome such challenges and help advance our society towards true hyper-connectivity. Now, this is not saying a lot. So we would dig here a bit deeper and understand what exactly is the vision. New era of decentralization, still not really clear what exactly that means. meaning of communities and creating new world by connecting such communities. Communities today are commonly defined, etc. Aims to build a decentralized network that allows independent blockchains with different governances to transact with one another without intermediaries. So Icon is kind of a connector between different blockchains and does this in a decentralized way. So this is one part that's understandable. Anyone can create a new blockchain project and join the network. A new blockchain project is free to connect with existing projects, create new unique worlds or blockchain multiverse. Icon itself can be viewed as both a living organism and an ecosystem. So what Icon wants to do is probably become a platform for blockchains. You can create, probably take part in the Icon network, and so it wants to become kind of an Ethereum in certain ways. So this is where we would start to dig deeper. So what exactly does this mean? What kind of platform? ICO platform, different platform, digital asset, digital smart economy like Neo, like all of these other projects. So this is basically where we would dig deeper into the white paper and basically understand, okay, how is the white paper generally structured? And already what you can see here, 39 pages for a white paper is actually quite long. And what is also interesting is the technical aspect of the white paper is not that high. So this is the most difficult formula you can find in the white paper. And the reason why I'm talking about this is basically, if we look at the Bitcoin white paper, so the Bitcoin white paper is 9 pages compared to Icon being 39 pages. And while the Bitcoin white paper also explains some things, there is some heavy math if you don't understand what all of these things are, and when most investors actually don't. There's even some C code, which is basically programming code explaining what and how to do transaction, how they work, and all of these things. So this is more of a scientific research paper, and this white paper is actually more for kind of the investor, the end investor that doesn't really want to dive too much into the technical details, but still wants to get a good opinion on what works how. What is also interesting, and we don't often see this, but this white paper also has the roadmap inside. So roadmap is something we look at as well. We compared the general roadmap with the goals that have been reached so far. Ideally, they are already in a state where they have reached, for example, this. So the open source of the loop chain should already be available. First developers meetup. So was there a developers meetup? We'll check with this. The partnership with a major bank, has anything been announced? And depending on that, we will dig deeper. Like, what kind of partnership? Is it really a major bank? What does it mean? Is it just a partnership on paper? Is it really digging deeper? All of these things. The ICO, was there even an ICO? Probably, obviously it was, because we just saw it. Was there the developers meetup and all of these things? And what might seem like nitpicking is actually quite important, because roadmaps are obviously it's planned to kind of communicate the grand vision of the project, but it's also super important that the project owners, in this case, which are these people here, so these are the advisors, the foundation council, for example, and as well as the entire developers, the product managers, all of these people are taking it seriously enough and can actually make things happen. So what are the track records of these people? Have they shipped products before? Have they adhered to the roadmaps before? All of these questions are quite important when we do research. So this is, for example, stuff we would dig a bit more deeper. So we start with the white paper. Generally, we look at the white paper. What exactly does the project mean? What is the team consisting of? What kind of platform will be built? What is the roadmap looking like? Then we compare the team as well. Is the team capable of delivering this vision? Have they done something like this before, or do they have a track record in this industry? And we also look at the rest of the team and all of these things. And what about the news? What about the partnerships? Like all of these things that have been mentioned in the roadmap or in the grand vision, were they actually shipped? Was there any progress to what has been promised? So all of these things is generally what we dig into. And in a future episode, we can definitely dig a bit more deeply into what exactly goes into the research part. But for now, this is it. And I hope to see you tomorrow. Please like, subscribe. It really helps growing the channel. And we want to make this the most neutral, objective, and knowledgeable cryptocurrency channel on YouTube. So thank you and bye.